because we all say, the next time I see them, I'm going to tell them what I really think. And then the next time you see them, you don't do anything. Because we're like, maybe not today.
Next time. It's always the next
Next
time.
time. Yeah, we'll do that next time. It wasn't the right time.
Bullying at workplace is not something rare. A lot of us has been subjected to workplace bullying at one point or another, unable to find a way to deal with the bully as well as our own emotions. The emotions of frustration, anxiety, burnout, panic attack, or even depression. Have you ever felt that you have to deal with a difficult boss at workplace and the only way left for you to leave this toxic environment is to change your job and find a better boss? Well, if you have been thinking on it, hold on, because that may not be the best way to cope up with this problem. Welcome to Coaches on the Couch, the place where experts share their journey and inspire you to take action. My name is Pratishtha Bhalla and I will be your host for the show. And today we have with us another amazing coach, Tammy Dunnett, a communication coach based in Canada. And she helps people navigate through difficult conversations at workplace. Welcome, Tammy, to the show, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thanks, Pratishtha. I really appreciate that introduction and having this opportunity just to talk with you and kind of explore a little bit more about how we help the world in our little bit of way. So yeah, I'm an ex-target of workplace bullying, and I never thought I would be a coach helping people deal with conflict and bullying in the workplace. I was on my way to be a singer in Nashville. That's what I was going to be as a little girl. And I became a nurse. And then I just realized that I had a special gift for helping people not become emotionally reactive, but to help them see things in a better way so that they could maintain the relationship and still solve the problems.
Tammy, you mentioned about workplace bullying and you have been prey to it. So what was happening here with you, and what do you mean by workplace bullying?
Yeah, great question. So I actually thought I had a bad boss to begin with. And I think a lot of people in the workplace, whether it's a colleague or a boss, we probably feel it's just that they're not trained or nobody's taught them how to treat people nicely. And we don't really recognize the signs of bullying. And I didn't either. Like, I honestly, for 2 years, thought I had a bad boss. And then a colleague had said something to me about how she was really glad she got to know me. And I thought, that's cool. I'm glad I got to know you too. But that was also kind of weird. And so I asked her why she said that. And that's when I found out my boss was actually a bully, because she actually warned her to watch her back around me. So she was already interfering with relationships that didn't even have a chance to start. And so looking back now, like I'm many years past that, I now know some of the signs of workplace bullying. And I could summarize them in 5 real quick steps if you'd like.
Surely that would be
Yeah. Yeah. So nonverbal and verbal elements, like those are when you put your hand up in a meeting and someone's like, oh my gosh. It doesn't feel good when people do that. We don't want that behavior. It's unwanted. The second thing is that it's unwanted. It doesn't feel good when people roll their eyes or make a sarcastic remark or even like set you up for failure, which is even bigger than that. The third thing is there's an intention behind those behaviors to intimidate somebody else or to offend them. And the fourth is that there's a use of power in order to get someone to do something against their will. And then the last thing is it's repeated. If you're in the same environment with that same person, it's likely to be an ongoing experience with them.
So you mentioned that people try to be sarcastic, make remarks, or they just put out whenever you are trying to speak, they try to do something which makes you feel you're not good enough. So, and they are using their power to make you do things that you don't want to do. And you mentioned that it was a boss that did it. So how do you communicate it to other people or to your boss? Like the fact is that if you are saying it to your boss, maybe that person would not even agree that I ever did it. And if you say it to the HR or the people around, they might
Yeah.
just say that, oh, you cannot do your work properly, so that is why you are just blaming someone. So
Yeah.
how do you do that?
That was my exact experience in that organization because I didn't know any better. So beforehand, like in those first 2 years, when I thought I was managing it, I thought I was teaching her how to treat me because every time she was rude to me, I would stand up and I would say something. Or if she wrote me up badly, I would put in a grievance, like I would write something against that. So I thought I was doing what you're supposed to do. I was protecting my career, protecting my reputation. When I found out she was a bully, I didn't have any different tools. So I just got louder and I just got bigger and I did the same things I was doing, but I couldn't get any results because I didn't know any better. So that relationship we did not resolve. I left that organization, which is very, very common. People will leave a toxic place or a toxic boss. I didn't do the work though to understand what I was doing or what I wasn't doing that could have maybe made a difference. So a couple of years later, I found myself in the exact same position with another bully boss. And I was like, what's going on? So I had to look at myself. And I was teaching communication skills at the same time. And I realized that I was gifted that job because that was the piece I was missing before, was how do I have these hard conversations? And it really starts with setting an intention. When I look back at my first experience, my intention was not about creating a safe relationship. My intention was about meeting her toe to toe, head to head. I'm going to teach you. You're going to like not treat me this way. And so then my actions match that. But in the second experience, I didn't want that as an outcome. My intention was to resolve the issue so that we could still work together. So it starts with an intention, I think.
You mentioned an important point, which I was thinking that sometimes when we have one bully boss, and even if we leave the toxic place, we end up somewhere else with another bully. So somewhere we need to change the intention with which we are speaking. But then that being said, when we are in the middle of that bully, uh, in the middle of that chaos, and nobody is understanding us, and even if we are raising our voice, we are feeling that we are told to just keep our mouth shut, we are not good enough to even speak against someone who is at a senior position. At those moments, what was happening to you? How were you feeling, and how did you cope up with it?
Oh, I was incredibly frustrated. I was asking for support. I knew that the solution to my problem, so we were having an interpersonal problem, like if it was you and I, we were having a problem. The solution also had to be between you and I. And I was asking for people to help guide me with this conversation because I obviously wasn't getting it right. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And in the organization, in the first experience, there really wasn't anybody who could give me support there. I was always told, just go back and talk with your boss. I'm like, but my boss is the problem, and I don't know how to deal with this. And I forget what your question was now. How do we
Yeah,
do this? How do we have this conversation with the boss
yeah,
when
I
people
was
don't?
asking you how were you feeling at that time, and how
Oh,
did you
yeah.
navigate through those emotions?
Yeah. Thank you for reorientating me because I was like, my mind was already going somewhere else.
It's
And
absolutely
that's actually a side effect from having chronic bullying is your short-term memory is sometimes not so good. So thank you. So yeah, incredibly frustrated. I actually ended up getting to the point where I felt I couldn't trust my colleagues. So I was starting to withdraw and isolate from them because I didn't know who else she had warned. I didn't know who else's ear she was in. And I
Hmm.
got anxious. And I was almost 40 years old. I was starting to have panic attacks, which I never had before in my life. And I got so bad that I was afraid to be in the building, on the block, 3 miles away. And in my house, I didn't even want to open my phone, my emails, and I didn't want to leave the house because I got so scared to see her. Like I didn't have anything left in me to fight. So in that experience, I didn't navigate it well. I actually didn't notice that I was getting sick because I was too busy fighting her. My intention was focused on changing her. that I lost sight of where my power was. I thought I was in my power, but I was not in my power. And so in my healing journey, which took many, many years, and I still get triggered even now, and that happened like 15 plus years ago now. I can still be triggered in the right circumstances if things sound the same way, but I have resources to manage that now. So to answer the second half of that question, the navigating, that took time, and it took me wanting to change my mindset. So I have a saying that I use with my coaching clients. It's when you change your perspective, you change the experience. Now that comes from Lindsay Wagner, is who I heard that from. But I add on to that and I say that is true for the past, the present, and the future. So when I shift my perspective and I look at my past bully, and I look at her as, maybe she was about 24, I think, when she started, a 24-year-old new nurse, new supervisor, doing the best that she could. And I start to add some of these layers of who she is as a person into it, and not just as bully. My feelings about, could I have done anything different at that age, start to shift. I start to just look at it differently. And then I start to feel differently about the experience. And that was part of what I did.
That's amazing, that you have accepted that it made you get into panic attacks and fears and anxiety and frustrations, because so many times it is happening in the workplace that because of certain situations we tend to believe that we are not the problem, the other person is the problem, we are being bullied, victimized, and then we start getting into a loop where we are trying to just protect ourselves or fight for ourselves, and it doesn't do any good to anyone. Like we can end up in frustrations, panic attacks. And you mentioned that still it is strong enough that if something happens similarly, it triggers you. So when I'm thinking from a point of view of a person who may have just started their job, or they are like in that corporate world and still dealing with bosses where they cannot have a good conversation, they are thinking that they are the victim. How can they take power back in their hand?
I'd love to share a short story to share that. And it's 5 steps. I'll talk about the 5 steps. So when I was in my 20s, I actually had solved this with a bully boss that I didn't realize until many years later as I started to reflect on my journey. And this is kind of where the 5 steps started. This was a physician. I was a medical secretary. He was not just my boss, he was the owner of the company. Okay. And I say that because he had hiring, firing rights. He could just say, get out of here. One day, I knew he was aggressive with some of his staff. He had never treated me poorly. But one day I came into work and I got off the elevator. I walk into this waiting room full of patients, and he yelled at me for something I didn't do, but he was making it my fault and my responsibility. I didn't know what to do at that point. I hadn't developed my skills at that point. So I just left. I grabbed my stuff and went home. I didn't say anything to anybody. And when I got home, I thought, holy crap, if I don't go back, I'm out of a job. If I go back and I don't say anything, I don't want to work there. And I'm probably going to leave anyways. And then the other option is I can go back and say something. And maybe I'm out of a job, but maybe I'm not out of a job. So I spent the rest of that evening writing out what I wanted to say, thinking about how I would approach this. When would I do this? What would be the best time and the best place? And I just kind of considered all of those things, and I came up with a game plan. And the next morning I went to work super early because he was always at work early. I sat in his office because I wanted to have the advantage. And so when he came into work and he walked into his office, I stood up and my legs were shaking. So it sounds like I was like, I stood up and I was like, freaking out. And I just basically said to him what I had rehearsed about, you can't yell at me like that ever again, because I will leave and I won't come back. Here's my boundary, here's my consequence. And I went and sat at my desk and I waited for him to fire me, because I'm a secretary. He's a physician owner, right? He didn't fire me. And we worked together for a long time after that, and he never mistreated me again. And so what I realized what I did, when I broke that down, the first thing was I set my intention, right? I could quit, I could just not go back, or I could go back and have a conversation. So I selected number 3. My intention was to share my boundaries. The second step is I got into planning. Now, sometimes this happens really fast in a moment. Your brain can process so quickly. Other times you need, like I took the whole evening because I needed to think about what I would say, how I would say it. There's this power dynamic. So I got into planning. The third step is a gut check. Because we all say, the next time I see them, I'm going to tell them what I really think. And then the next time you see them, you don't do anything. Because we're like, maybe not today.
Next time. It's always the next time.
Yeah, we'll do that next time. It wasn't the right time. So the third step is so important because it gets you reconnected with the reason you started all the planning, with your intention. And so I think the gut check is what pushed me into the doing, which is step 4. Because I could have woke up that next morning and said, this is so not worth it. I am not going to talk to the owner of this company about how he yelled at me. That's crazy. But I didn't, because I was aligned with the value that was driving me forward, and I knew what I wanted and what I didn't want. And if I didn't speak up, who was going to do that for me? Nobody. So the 4th step is to take that courageous step and to do the thing you want to do. And then step 5, which I didn't do then, I did this many years later, and it's now a part of my practice, is to reflect. What went well? What didn't go well? What are you proud of? What would you like to change? Because the reflection is going to build the muscle so that the next time you have somebody who sounds like or looks like a bully, you've already kind of processed some pieces and you know how to adjust.
I think these are step by step someone can do. But when we are in the middle of those things, the feeling, like you said, my legs were trembling, that sometimes take over us and we think, oh, this is a lost battle. Just let me go. Who will talk to this person? Especially if you are new and the person who is bullying is an old resource. I've seen that corporate sometimes give preference to getting the revenue, who is generating more revenue, and
100%.
versus who is being bullied. So why does a corporate why would a corporate bother about an employee if they complain of being bullied?
Yeah, corporates will worry when it starts to impact their bottom line. And even bullies have been kept in organizations because of the exact thing that you just shared, right? They are high performers. They're bringing in the money. They're bringing in the people, because a business is nothing without any of those things. And they will overlook some of those other things until sometimes legally they can no longer do that. There are organizations that all of our efforts will just not change. And so then you make a decision, how do I stay here and be safe, or do I go? Sometimes that's the decision we get to make. That's where our power is. And if you have to stay because of financial reasons or maybe geographical reasons, there's no other jobs in your area, then it's about how do we keep you safe in this environment? What boundaries can we put in? What self-care can we put in? How can we support you so that you're not taking this garbage home with you at the end of the day?
So Tammy, you said that it's like, what I heard is, it's don't depend on the system to change. Instead, work on yourself and stay safe within that environment and create your boundaries. What I have seen time and again is it's difficult to create those boundaries, specifically when the boss is particularly for searching for only one person in the team to bully, and the other people, they get the support because they are not getting any shout outs, or they're like shoutings. The boss is not shouting at them. The target is one person so that the message reaches the other person. I see that also a strategy sometimes the bosses, some people use.
Yeah.
So when that is happening, when that one person who is being bullied, just to give an impression to others how to behave, and that one person finds that I don't have anywhere to go, there is no job opportunity, or there is some financial challenges that makes that person stay till they can, and then they quit. So
Yeah.
in that situation, what can the person do differently so that uh, they don't remain that one target? If the boss
Yeah.
is not trying to be a good friend or not trying at all to understand the point of view.
Yeah. And that's such a great question. I just want to, before I give my answer, I just want to say that I know how hard it is to be in this. So it's going to feel like this answer is like soft and like doesn't really get to the heart of it. There is work in this answer. And I would suggest look at what you own, right? So if you were that boss and you were coming at me and you were always yelling at me and trying to make me feel bad, first of all, I own my own emotions. You can't make me choose an emotion. So if I'm choosing to feel bad, I need to look at why am I choosing that? Because this is my power. Why am I giving you that power in my life and in my mind and in my feelings? You don't have any, you don't pay rent up here, so you don't get to have that kind of power over me. I can choose to go, okay, you're just a jerk. I'm going to have to work under you. I'm going to like put that in a box. I'm going to listen to your words, not the tone. I don't own your anger. That's a you issue, not a me issue. I happen to be where you want to dump it. Fine. Dump it here if you need to. Walk away, feel good about yourself. I'm going to put that in the garbage when you leave because it's not mine to own. Like there's ways, and this is why I say it's going to sound like it's easy, right? But I know that's really hard to do because this is an internal shift. We're so conditioned to please other people. We're so conditioned to get external validation, but it's all from inside.
Yes, I totally get you. So I think for that, the person needs to get some kind of mentoring or training for being emotionally intelligent, because as you are saying, it's easy said than done, because when we are in the middle of that pain and we don't know a way out, we think that we are the victim. But
Yeah,
the moment we take back our power, maybe the opportunities start opening up as well.
that's right. Yeah, I got shivers just to hearing you say that. The moment we take back our power, right? I choose my feelings. I choose what I'm going to listen to. I choose how I'm going to represent myself every day when I come to work. And even if I'm in a crappy environment and I may not feel good about it all the time, I know when I was going, I still showed up every single day because I knew I was a value employee, because I knew the work I did was strong. That's what kept me going forward. Yeah.
Okay. So Tammy, how did you make that shift? Did anyone, any mentor, coach, anyone helped you in getting that power back and
Yeah.
ensuring you don't take their garbage home?
Yeah. Don't take that garbage home. Leave that stink at work. I will share. I wish I knew about coaching back in 2008, 2009, because often what I see is that people who are struggling in the workplace or in relationships outside the workplace, the typical remedies are therapy, and therapy is important. It's not the answer though. It's medications for sleep, for stress, for anxiety, for depression, and it's time away. Like in the workplace, we call it stress leave here, but some people take unpaid leave, some people just leave. Those three things are great supports. Like they're needed in our system because our system is broken. Our system isn't actually dealing with the problem. Right. And so again, I forgot your question because I'm like, oh, so passionate about this. My apologies to all of you listening. My mind is over here already, like big and expansive.
It's absolutely fine. I was asking you, did anyone help you in this journey of realizing? Any coach, mentor?
Yes, thank you. I knew you would get me back where I needed to go. I'm gonna say,
We got you covered.
yeah, thank you. I'm gonna say, I don't want to say nobody helped me because those things on the peripheral were supporting me to get back to balance, but there was no one helping me in the relationship. Right? There was no one saying to me, well, let's role play this and let's talk about this. And what are you saying? And how are you doing this? And have you thought about this? And what is it you're bringing? I wish I had known about coaching then. When I went through it the second time, it was all internal because I was teaching communication skills and I had been for a couple of years. So I now had a lot of tools that I didn't have before. So I was coaching myself through it because it was more familiar. And now I have a coach. Now I have a coach that helps me with, all things life. So I think coaching is an incredibly powerful resource for people to get back into their power. Yeah. I honestly don't think I needed medications and stress leave and therapy had we had the coaching in place at the very beginning.
So what I'm hearing is because of that frustration, anxiety, were you on medication as well? If that's okay to answer.
Oh yeah. I took medications for sleep and for anxiety. They offered medications for depression, and I'm not giving medical advice. My personal thought was no. I didn't want to be medically numb to work in a place that was hurting me. As a nurse, it didn't make sense that we were, and it hurt my heart to think this is how we are dealing with people. It didn't make sense that people had to be medicated to work in a place that was hurting them. That was so downstream. I wanted the problem upstream. Like, let's go to the source of the problem and fix that. And then I don't need all of these other things that are really consuming my life. Yeah.
Tammy, this is so profound because a lot of people, the moment they go to the doctor and mention the word anxiety or they're not able to sleep, the first thing they are told is, "Oh, get a checkup if you have anxiety issues or depression," and then a prescribed medicine is given to them. And because the doctor is giving them that medicine, people don't know anything better, and then they start taking that medicine. And then I have seen like the journey getting worse and worse every day. You
Right, because
have
the medication is not solving the problem. It's just keeping you happy-ish so that you can keep dealing with the problem. Yeah.
Right. And you being a medical nurse, you know the side effects of having those medicines. Can I just ask you what were the side effects that people, so that people also know if they are listening to us right now, that if they take those medicines, what can be the side effects of them?
It would depend on the medication, so there's so many different types that you could take. And I think more important than the side effects is that the benefit. Like, there is a purpose for them, and it's because the system has failed you at this stage that we need to help you now restore balance.
Mhm.
I believe in medications. I was intellectualizing my experience as I was going through it and looking at the higher level going, this just can't be the answer. But I know that the medical system is limited. It can't reach into my relationship and say, here's what you need to do, because that's not its area of specialty. It looks at where I'm out of balance and it tries to restore that for me. Well, hopefully there's some other entity helping me resolve the problem, but that just wasn't available. And maybe this is your experience as well, I would imagine, is that this is common. In the workplace, people don't know how to have these conversations because we're just not taught. We're taught, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. We're taught, respect your elders. We're taught all these things that actually are hurting us. We should be teaching people, raise concerns in a safe way that doesn't create more defense, but creates more connection.
Mm. Yeah, so medical system can help you deal with the problem, not resolve the problem, like you said. So we need to work on the problem. And if you are in a workplace and you are getting bullied, that is a problem that you need to work on, instead of just taking some, like, if there is a need, if the doctor is saying, of course we are not medical professionals, so we cannot say anything, but still there is a better way where you resolve the problem. So resolving the problem, how did it change your life, like from anxious person to now? What is different?
Yeah. So it was in my second job when that bully experience showed up again that I had that really courageous conversation. So I immediately was triggered, as I said. I was anxious, having panic attacks, and I did not want to go to the building. Like, I was afraid of a building. Buildings can't harm you. And so I had to dig deep, and I had to tell myself, like, this person is not your bully. This building is not your bully. And I have different tools now. So I set up the stage with her. It's some of the stuff that I teach in my program is how to set the stage. She agreed to have a conversation with me. She knew what we were going to talk about. We walked outside to reduce any hierarchical feeling, not her office. Like it just wasn't going to happen, right? And we collaborated. And at the end of that, what I realized was that it truly is a courageous conversation that changes the dynamic in a relationship. We have to be courageous to grant ourselves permission to have it because of all that outside noise we've been taught. You know, we need to like stand up for who we are and what we want, but in a way that's therapeutic for the relationship and not taking away from it.
Yeah, because there are labels for people who stand up. They are called aggressive many times, and if you don't, you are called like passive, somebody who's not interested. And those labels, like everyone, not everyone, I would say, but a lot of people, a lot of us are scared of those given those labels. So, what can a person do so that they don't get the label, yet they put their point of view in a courageous way? And I'm saying that because we have, like you said, our system is broken and nobody taught us how to do that.
That I'm going to say is my favorite question of all time in any interview because I am so passionate about removing labels. I thought I was assertive, right? Assertive is the gold standard. So if you had told me that I could be an avoider, I would have been absolutely insulted. Like there's no way I would avoid a conflict because I want resolution. I know that I was probably on the aggressive and passive aggressive side as well, but I didn't see it because in my mind, I was being assertive. So I invite people to take those labels off. Like as just imagine you're taking a jacket off and just set it down for a while. And what I teach in my program is the energy of moving through conflict. We can't manage conflict. You can no longer manage conflict than you can change the direction of the wind. And yet we get all these classes on conflict management. Management is about control. It's not what we do in conflict. We need to engage with it. We need to move with it to get to resolution because there's two people, there's two unique situations, perspectives. So I want you to, I'll share with the four energies that I teach. Pausing. So that would be your classic avoider and accommodator. Strip that label away and give yourself permission to be pausing. ING ending is super important, not a pauser, because that's another label. But pausing, what am I doing right now? Taking some space away. I'm taking some time. I'm de-escalating. I'm looking around. I'm considering my options. There's a different energy with that than if you say I'm avoiding. Because so many avoiders, air quoting, so many avoiders come to me and they say, I wish I had your confidence. I wish I was as courageous as you. And in that language, they're saying that it's not possible for them because they're attached to that dang label. Take that jacket off and let yourself experience the energy of what you're doing. The second one is asking and understanding. So these are the kind of the things that you will see in conflict. When somebody doesn't have clarity, well, let me take a step back. People go into pausing because they don't have safety. They don't feel safe, so they step back. People go into asking and understanding when they don't have clarity over the situation. So if you're asking a lot of questions, and this can also include making jokes like, oh my gosh, or hinting, look at the time. Woo. We don't tell people to get out of our office. We just kind of hint at it. So this is also an asking, understanding energy. And then from there, we go into sharing and speaking. That's my dominant. That's where I start typically. And I realize I need to like lean into my pausing energy more. I need to like quiet my mouth. A speaking energy wants validation. So if you're in conflict with somebody who's speaking, validate them. Just let them know you hear them. You don't have to agree, but you hear them. I see what you're saying. I can understand how you got here. I maybe don't agree with you, but I'd like to learn more. Validate them. You'll de-escalate them quickly. And then the last one is doing. And the doing energy, when you think of the classic, like you mentioned, the avoiders, the accommodators, passive aggressive, assertive and aggressive. The doing energy is not represented in any of those old labels. And I think those old labels were great for a time. I think they're a disservice to us now because of the fact that we attach ourselves to them. So doing energy, what they need is trust. Right? This is the person who's just going to solve the problem. And they want you to trust that they know what they're doing, that they have the knowledge, they have the skill, they have the experience. And so those are the movements through conflict to get to engaged collaboration.
Wow, so you gave the 4-step formula: pausing, asking and understanding, sharing and speaking, and then doing. I think anyone who is listening this now, they have a strategy. At least they can follow these plans. And if they can't, I would request them to just get in touch with you. And I will be sharing your details in the chat box, in the comment section of the podcast, as well as video, so that anyone who wants to have that help, they can come to you. Uh, Tammy, before we end the session for today, I have a last question for you. What would be the tip you would give to your younger self to navigate through the conflicts differently, that you know now you didn't knew that time?
I'm going to say listen more. Listen more. Ask more questions. Get the bigger picture. Because when you get more information, that leads me back to your perspective changes, right? So when you see a child crying and a mother standing there, we'll just use this example. You think, why is that mother not holding the child? And we go into judgment or something. But when you ask questions and maybe you learn that the mother's deaf and she can't hear the child crying, you change. You're like, oh, I had no idea. Like your perspective changes already. So when you get more information, you have a better resource, like a better starting point to get to resolution faster. So just listen and ask questions more.
I think that's a big one, because we are always trying to speak more and not listen more. And like, we got special training to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's fun to practice. Just go out in public and people watch and just listen and eavesdrop. And yeah.
Especially for extroverts, they would need an extra effort to just stop speaking and start listening. Again, I'm putting a label, but I'm like, that is what we experience. Okay, if somebody is extrovert, they enjoy talking, but then pause and listen, because you get to know so much more when you listen.
Yeah. And listen, labels are good because our brain uses them to like quickly disseminate information. They're bad when we stay stuck in that label, which is why I invite people to take off their label they've used to define their conflict style. Just take it off for a while. And who are you being? And what do you need? That's really where we need to be.
Wow, absolutely. So thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing so many action points and sharing your personal experience with us, that I'm sure whoever is listening, and if they are getting bullied at workplace, they now have some action points they can take from here. Instead of feeling like a victim, take off that jacket, whatever label you are wearing, and wear on another jacket where you are ready to resolve the problem. Take back your power, as Tammy said, take back your power. Thank you so much. And anything at the end that you would like to share or say before we end the call?
Just that if people are struggling, I know the biggest question I get asked is, how do I speak up in these moments and not create more drama, right? Because that's the biggest fear. So I do have 10 safe conversation starters that I offer people. And I think you're going to put the link in. I think that was part of the, So I just wanted to mention that the 10 safe conversation starters, what that is scripted responses to 10 of the most offensive behaviors you might experience in the workplace. So somebody's sabotaging you, someone is backstabbing you, breaking your privacy. How can you bring that up without creating more drama? Use those scripts. And that's going to either stop the behavior or open up a conversation so you can solve the problem between.
Wow, that would be really, really useful. Even I'm going to download that. Stop the drama and take back your power. Thank you so much, Tammy. And thank you everyone for listening to us and staying here, listening to us till the end. I'll meet you next week with another amazing coach. Till then, keep smiling and keep shining. It's me, Pratishtha. Thank you.